Hello, everyone. Greetings from Broome. I felt like I wanted to add to the flavor of the Kimberleys wearing my little Aussie hat, and you can see a boab tree back there, which is indigenous to Broome. And the topic I wanted to share with you today is something that I've been personally working with and have found some new expansion in, and I have a feeling that some of this might resonate with you. So I am so curious. How many of you actually trust life? Like actually trust that good things will happen? And how many of you consciously or unconsciously are a little bit gripped and tight, maybe a little bit extra controlling, extra planning, because if you let go and if you give some space and if you allow, that may mean that things will fall apart or bad things will happen. We could also talk about, do you trust your flow? How do you know when you're actually in flow? Along with that, I would say that one of the superpowers to being able to be in flow is being able to trust yourself, trust your intuition, and commit to that. Now, when we think about intuition, I don't know about you, but for me, I expected it to be a little bit more obvious. And also, I used to expect that I would know the reason why I'm actually getting this information. I'll give you some examples. Back pre-corona, when I used to teach classes in person, there'd be like a group of 20 or 30, and maybe I'd be teaching and adjusting someone, and I'd suddenly get this feeling like, oh, I need to go over here and put my hand here. And, the student later would be like, oh my God, how did you know? And, my ego wanted to be like, yeah, I knew. But, the truth of the matter is that I was just following flow. It's not like I was like, oh, go over to Steve and put your hand on his throat. It was just more like I got this psychic hit or intuitive hit, however you want to talk about it, and I just went for it. And the reason why I've been successful with this methodology, if you want to call it, in so many aspects of my life, teaching, healing, but also when I need to go somewhere, when I need to stop something, all aspects, is that I haven't questioned it, and I've actually just followed it without starting to tear it apart. Because usually our logical brain can just like kill our intuition. It can also kill our enthusiasm. And for most of us, we have been indoctrinated, going to school, that this is the way that you think about things. So if you want to be a good person, if you want to be safe in this world, if you want to have success, if you want to be loved, this is the way to do it. So it can be actually terrifying to allow yourself to access your intuition, because that same part of like the scientific basis that we kind of want, that reassurance, isn't going to be there. And sometimes what I've learned in personal experience is that if I haven't trusted my intuition, the data that I need to be like, you could have followed your intuition on that, is more like things have fallen apart. And I'm like, oh yeah, if I actually followed my actual flow, that wouldn't have happened. So I really invite you, especially right now with what's happening in the world, your intuition, being able to sense what feels right for you, is going to be an asset. And that, yes, I think you can even relate how many times you put things on paper and it's like, yeah, if I logically looked at this, this is what I'm doing, but for some reason this feels right. Can you trust that? I think I'm going to add along to that is, and this is like a whole separate piece and a place where you can go off on your own with it too, but most of us, have experienced some sort of trauma. And whether it's trauma with a little t or trauma with a big T, like things have happened that make us feel like it's not good to be in this world. It's not safe to be in this world. I don't want to be here. I can never find a partner that's actually good for me. I'm not good enough. Like our whole belief system. And one of our powers as we mature is, can we start to go through those beliefs and start to see, do I want to keep running my life according to that? Did I actually know that I had the power to start to rewire this. And why this is important is that you can consider your past trauma almost like a soundtrack. And, have you ever been like walking down the street or driving or on your bicycle, listening to music, like headphones in, and it's like, let's say you're listening to like a really sad or dramatic opera, and suddenly like everything that you're looking at is like a sad, dramatic opera. And then if you shifted it to like, quick little happy, like pop music, suddenly it's just like, oh, things are feeling a little different. We are influenced by tones and rhythms and the thoughts that we have, the memories, the compulsion to keep circling over the same old things that happened and the universe that we've created from that. That in itself is a soundtrack. So my invitation to you today, and really the whole reason why I'm making this video, is I'm asking you, do you like this soundtrack? Or is there a new soundtrack that you want to have? I'm going to give you a personal example just to see if this will flow for you. So a few weeks ago, I'll give you the cliff notes because I can tell very long stories. I was driving. I went against my intuition. And I ended up getting in a car accident. I hit a kangaroo. And I was so upset. I mean, both because I hit a kangaroo. I hurt the car. I hurt myself, my rental car guy. Like, there was a lot of layers going on. But also because I was like, shit, I went against myself. Like, I actually was purposefully driving away from what felt right for me. And so I felt like that was a big wake-up call. Fast forward, a week later, I get to Broome, and I was just really looking forward because it had been like a long winter where I was before. And it was just ready to like sparkle with my magic. I was ready to get tropical. I was ready to be on a bicycle and no more cars. And 30 minutes into my moment of being on my bicycle as I'm cycling along, suddenly my back wheel falls off. Like, it just falls off. And I was like, I was overtired, I had to put everything in storage in my old house. There was a lot up in the air. I was waiting for my cervical exam to come back, which, by the way, listen to my other videos. If you want to heal your cervix naturally, like, you can do it. But there was just a lot of like stress. And when that wheel fell off, I was like, all right, I've got a choice. Like, I can continue to feel like shit. The universe is just fucking with me and just wants to shit on me. Or I'm like, how am I going to play with this? Because my one intention that day was I need to start to have my fun. I need to play a little bit more. So I knew I had a choice. Like, I wasn't bypassing, because I'm not talking the American optimism, like positivity that like suppresses and bypasses. Like, we're not being fake, okay? Like, I've done so much work where I'm like, how's my inner child? Okay, she's a little scared, she's a little angry, like, how do I caretake her? Like, you got to know your sides and pieces. But I was like, okay, I'm aware of all this. And as the head director of my universe, let's have some fun. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let this be a problem. And, I called up my Airbnb host. She's like, you got to walk home, just park the bike. And I was like, shit, it's like 40 degrees Celsius. And I've got to, walk an hour home. Like, that's not fun. But I was like, no, we're going to find someone who's going to fix this. And along walk this German dude, and I'm part German, so I can say this, I think. I'm like, he's going to be able to fix my bike, So I looked at him, I said, can you fix my bike? And he did, like in 5 minutes. And it rode better than before. Fast forward, a few hours later, going into bed, my host writes me, he's like, so sorry to text you so late, but, I think the universe is just wanting to play with you a little bit. I was like, all right, that's a little bit of a weird message, but okay. Fall asleep. 2 hours later, the fire alarm goes off. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is the first night when I actually get to have some sleep, and the fire alarm goes off. Now, at that point, I had committed that I am not going to let anyone fuck with my light and fun. Because it's just like, what, I could go in a wormhole and be like, oh my God, it's so horrible. But I was like, I'm just going to stay curious about this one. So I actually was able to stay very light, called up my host, and long story short, like, we managed to get the fire alarm off, but I was up for about 3 hours, and I hung out with her and we had tea. And the reason why I'm saying this is that now when we're scared, we can be a little bit more rigid. And when I say scared, like when we have an undercurrent of fear that causes us to control everything, we can be so attached to outcome and expectation and how things are supposed to be. And that actually distracts us from the present. And if we kind of allow a little bit of a spaciousness and just kind of like, all right, let's just stay curious. And my inner attitude, like, I'm going to play with this. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to let this be a dance. Then it's not like we have to dance a certain way. It's a little bit more improv and spontaneous. And then suddenly things don't become a problem. So that for this week, even though I had so much work to get done and so many things to do and like, okay, certain things weren't happening, I just kept deciding it's going to be okay. We're going to flow. We're actually going to have some fun. And I found this like undercurrent of joy that was definitely not because of anything happening on the outside, but more I was like, I want my joy. I want to play. Like I have a choice in my attitude. Now I'm saying this, and again, I just want to say that if you haven't done the extra inner work around like how you might be suppressing things, it's really important that you don't bypass your feelings. So I'm not talking about like, put a Band-Aid over everything and just move on, but that we do have a conscious choice in how we're living our life. We do have a power, even though especially right now what's happening on the planet, like we really feel like, fuck, like they have the power. Where's your power? You have this. And you can let the little things and the big things help wake you up. And that's my invitation to you. You can do this. You do not have to be a Debbie Downer. You don't need to have like dramatic sad opera unless you want to, unless you really are getting off on it. But remember that you have the power and how you're steering your ship. There is a flow for you here. Can you start to listen and trust that? And that is my magic message to you. Sending you lots of love from